All right, let's dive in. You know the drill by now. You gave us some interesting stuff to dig into, and today we're unearthing the gems in Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
And it's not your typical business book, that's for sure.
Right. It's raw and honest, almost uncomfortably so, which I think makes it even more valuable.
Definitely. It's refreshing to get such a candid perspective.
Totally. So he starts off with this, well, kind of a jarring childhood story.
Yeah, about being dared as a kid to steal a wagon from another kid's and use a racial slur.
Oh,
It's heavy stuff, but he uses it to set up this idea of playing the game on the field.
okay, I'm intrigued.
It's like he acknowledges the bigger societal issues, but within the context of business, the game, the focus has to be on winning.
Using the rules of that specific game.
Right, and you can see that mindset in his Netscape days, during the whole dot-com boom.
But yeah, the Wild West of the internet.
He talks about completely bombing a product interview with Mark Andreessen and getting this scathing email afterward.
Ouch. Imagine getting ripped apart by a tech legend like that.
It's a good reminder that even the giants stumble and face harsh criticism.
For sure. But Ben didn't let it crush him.
No, he went to his wife, Felicia, for advice. It shows how crucial it is to have someone you trust to give you perspective.
Someone to keep you grounded.
Exactly. And that becomes super important in his journey from LoudCloud to Opsware, which was a wild ride.
Near bankruptcy, then the complete transformation.
A total roller coaster. And what's really striking is how he handled that transition with his employees.
He could have sugarcoated it, but he didn't.
Nope, total transparency. He basically said, look, we're pivoting to Opsware. It's risky. You can stay and fight with me or leave with my full support.
Wow. What happened?
Almost everyone stayed. It shows the power of honesty and how it builds trust, even when things are uncertain.
It's like forging a bond through that shared risk.
And that trust becomes essential when they hit this major crisis with their biggest client, EDS.
Oh, I remember reading about that. They were on the verge of losing them.
Yeah, and EDS made up like 90% of their revenues, life or death for Opsware.
No pressure, right. So what did they do?
This is where Ben's strategic mind and this guy named John O'Farrell come in. John was his go-to for tough negotiations.
Like a fixer?
Kind of. They came up with this intense 60-day plan to save the account, which involved acquiring another company, Tangram.
So not just talking their way out of it, but actually making big moves.
Right. Operational execution plus creative problem solving. And there's this great anecdote about an EDS executive who insisted on long airport layovers just to hang out at the bar.
Seriously.
Yeah, it highlights how crucial it is to truly understand your customers, even their quirks. It's not just about surface-level requests, but digging deeper to figure out their real motivations.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, so we've seen Ben navigate some pretty intense situations, from facing down Mark Andreessen to saving Opsware from the brink.
And we've only just scratched the surface. His journey is packed with insights about leadership, resilience, and facing those hard decisions head-on.
That's what we're here for, to unuse those gems and see how they can apply to our own journeys no matter what field we're carrying on.
Exactly. And there's a lot more to uncover, so buckle up. And that EDS crisis really shows Ben's style, his problem solving and leadership.
Totally. But even after that, things weren't smooth sailing, right?
Not exactly. A new competitor popped up, Blade Logic, and the constant pressure started getting to Ben and his team.
You can feel it in the book, that weight bearing down.
He describes this intense all-hands meeting where he just lays it all out there, how bad the situation is.
And essentially asks his engineers for a 6-month commitment to push through it all.
Yeah, to give it everything they've got.
Pretty intense.
And what's fascinating is, years later, one of those engineers, Ted, reflected on that moment, and he had no idea how much pressure Ben was under.
He just saw Ben being honest, being a leader.
It just shows how powerful open communication is, even when it's tough news.
It creates a shared understanding, this feeling of being in the trenches together.
And that drives a different level of commitment.
Absolutely. And eventually, all that effort paid off. Opsware got sold for $1.65 billion.
Incredible. It's proof of their resilience and their ability to navigate those hard times.
But what makes The Hard Thing About Hard Things so valuable are the leadership lessons he extracts from all this.
They go way beyond just tech and apply to anyone in a leadership role, in any field.
One thing that stuck with me was his focus on taking care of people, products, and profits, in that order.
Yeah, it's a simple framework, but it says a lot about his priorities.
It's like you can't have a great company without great people.
And you can't have great products without a team that feels valued.
Then the profits come naturally from that strong foundation.
Makes sense, right? When you invest in people and build that culture of innovation, everything else falls into place.
Another thing that really struck me was his emphasis on transparency and honesty, even when it's uncomfortable.
He believes it builds trust and credibility, not just with employees, but with everyone you work with, customers, investors, everyone.
And he learned this through experience, both good and bad.
He talks about this interesting concept called management debt.
Management debt. What's that?
Like all those little shortcuts and compromises you make as a leader, often with good intentions in the moment.
Okay, I'm pulling.
But like financial debt, it can build up and cause major problems down the line.
So those little compromises, the things we might sweep under the rug, they can actually snowball and become huge obstacles.
Exactly. Ben says it erodes trust, creates resentment, and ultimately hurts the company's culture and performance.
Yikes. So what's the antidote?
Radical transparency and honesty, even when it's painful.
Be upfront, have those tough conversations, deal with problems head on.
It's about long-term health over short-term ease.
But that takes a lot of courage and a real commitment to your team.
It's about taking care of them, even when it means giving tough feedback or making hard decisions.
Which leads to another interesting point he makes about being a CEO. He says one of the most important things a CEO does is make decisions.
Seems obvious, but
But it's so hard in reality, especially when the stakes are high and you don't have all the information.
and in the startup world, you rarely have all the information.
So it's about making those calls with limited data, accepting the risk of being wrong.
He says there are two types of CEOs, those who are comfortable with that and those who need to analyze everything before making a move.
Like the shoot first, aim later versus measure twice, cut once approaches, but for leadership.
He doesn't say one is better than the other.
It's about knowing yourself and what you're comfortable with.
If you're not a quick decision maker, you need to develop that skill.
Because in the fast-paced world of startups, hesitation can be fatal.
It's about calculated risk-taking, being decisive even when you don't have all the answers.
And learning from your mistakes along the way.
And that ties into another big theme in the book, embracing the struggle.
Building a company is inherently hard.
There will be setbacks, disappointments, moments when you want to give up.
But Ben says that struggle is part of the journey. It's where growth and greatness come from. It's about figuring out how to navigate those challenges, building that resilience and grit.
And he gives practical advice for those tough times, like sharing the burden with your team.
Don't go it alone. Lean on your mentors. Seek support.
It's about building that support system, knowing you don't have to have all the answers.
And that leads to another crucial element, building a strong company culture.
He's clearly passionate about this.
And it's more than just perks and cool offices.
It's about those shared values and principles that guide everything you do.
And being intentional about defining them, reinforcing them through your actions.
Walk the walk, not just talk the talk like his no assholes rule at Andreas and Horowitz.
That definitely sets a tone.
It's about creating an environment where people feel respected, valued, and empowered.
And setting clear expectations for behavior, holding everyone accountable.
Ben believes a strong culture is key to attracting and keeping top talent.
And building a company that can weather any storm.
It's about building something sustainable, high-performing, and true to its core values.
And he doesn't stop there. He gets into the nitty-gritty of execution, too.
He offers advice on everything from hiring and firing to product development and sales.
And he tackles those tough, often avoided topics.
Like conducting layoffs ethically or demoting a close friend.
Those are the situations that really test a leader, right?
He gives a framework for making those calls with clarity and empathy.
Be direct but not cruel, honest but respectful.
It's finding that balance between being effective and being a decent human being.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that leadership isn't just about strategy and numbers.
It's about people, those relationships, making tough calls, but keeping your integrity.
And those are the lessons that really come through in The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
It's not just theory, you know?
It feels real, relatable.
You see the struggle, the doubt, the exhaustion.
But you also see the determination, that resilience.
That unwavering commitment.
Yeah. And he emphasizes that the entrepreneurial journey is rarely smooth sailing.
There are going to be obstacles, detour, moments when you question everything.
But it's about embracing that struggle.
Learning from the setbacks, that's where the growth comes from.
So it's not about avoiding the hard stuff.
It's about being equipped to handle it, the tools, the mindset, the support.
Ben's principles are like a roadmap, not just for building a company,
but for tackling any challenge, really.
a new project, leading a team, anything.
As we wrap up our deep dive into the hard thing about hard things, what are the big takeaways? What do you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think Ben's story shows that success, whether it's a company or any goal, takes strategic thinking.
Relentless execution.
And a real commitment to people.
Be bold in your vision, decisive in your actions.
And compassionate in your leadership.
Build a culture that fosters excellence and empathy.
Where people can grow and feel supported.
And maybe most importantly, embrace the struggle.
Those hard things we face, they're not roadblocks.
They're opportunities.
It's about remembering the journey matters just as much as the destination.
And even when we stumble, those lessons shape us.
Make us more resilient, resourceful, successful.
So to our listener, on your own journey, whatever path you're on, Keep Ben's principles in mind.
Embrace the struggle. Build those strong relationships.
Prioritize honesty, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Keep diving deep. Keep exploring. Keep striving.
The hard things are often the most rewarding.
Until next time, I feel 1.8.